My name is Eleanor Hayes. I'm 38 years old. I'm sitting in a roadside motel room that smells like burnt insulation and stale coffee, staring at a phone that hasn't stopped buzzing, trying to understand how grief can compound so quickly it stops feeling real. 3 days ago, my grandmother died. Yesterday, her house burned down, and the person responsible was the man I thought I was building a life with, but I didn't know that yet. At 3:14 p.m., while I was at work, my phone lit up with a message that didn't make sense at first. I read it twice before the words started to blur. "Babe, I'm so sorry. I accidentally started a fire at your grandma's house. I was trying to surprise you by cleaning. I knocked over a candle. The fire department came, but it's bad. Don't worry, though. Insurance will cover everything." I remember thinking how calm the message sounded. Too calm. Like it had been rehearsed. My hands went numb. I couldn't feel my fingers as I tried to call him. Once, twice, straight to voicemail. I left my office without telling anyone where I was going. The drive felt endless. 40 minutes of red lights and shallow breathing, and a pressure in my chest that felt like something was trying to claw its way out. When I pulled onto the gravel road, the house didn't look like a house anymore. Fire trucks were still there, hoses coiled like dead snakes across the lawn. The second floor was gone entirely, just open sky where my childhood bedroom used to be. The first floor was a blackened shell, windows shattered, walls blistered. The treehouse out back was still standing. That was the part that broke me. Fire Chief Morrison pulled me aside while I stood there uselessly, smelling smoke and ash and wet wood. "You the owner?" I just inherited it 3 days ago. He nodded slowly, writing something down. "Your boyfriend said he had permission to be here." "Yes. I asked him to water the plants while I handled the funeral." He paused. "He said it was a candle accident. We're investigating. Standard procedure." "You'll need the report for insurance," he added. "Insurance." The word dropped straight through me. My grandmother's policy ended when she passed. I hadn't transferred it yet. I was going to call the next day. I always thought I had more time. I found Daniel later at his apartment. He was on the couch, crying dramatically into his hands. His roommate Marissa was rubbing his back like he was the victim here. "I'm so sorry," he sobbed, throwing himself into my arms the moment he saw me. "I just wanted to help. I know how hard this week has been." I heard myself say it before I'd fully thought it through. "It's okay. Accidents happen." He pulled back, mascara smudged under his eyes. "You're not mad?" "I'm in shock. I just need time." "Of course," he said quickly, too quickly. "Hey, you can stay here. We practically live together anyway. And now that the house is gone, it's kind of perfect timing to make it official." Something in his voice made my stomach twist. Too bright, too eager. "I need to deal with insurance first," I said. "I already called them for you," he replied. "Left a message saying it was urgent." I stared at him. "You called my insurance?" "Just trying to help, babe." That night, I stayed at the motel instead. I told him I needed space. He said he understood, but his disappointment bled through every word. Lying on the stiff bed, staring at a water-stained ceiling, the pieces started rearranging themselves in my head. Daniel had been pushing for me to move in for months. "That old house is too far from downtown. It'll cost a fortune to maintain. We should start fresh somewhere together." 2 weeks ago, when I told him I planned to move into my grandmother's house, he'd gone quiet. "But what about us?" he'd asked. "I don't want to live an hour away from my job." I opened my Ring doorbell app. The camera was mounted on the detached garage, one of the few things that survived. My hands shook as I scrolled back through the footage. 2:47 p.m. Daniel walked into the house carrying a red gas can. 3:08 p.m. He walked back out without it. 3:11 p.m. Smoke began seeping from the windows. He stood in the driveway watching for a full minute before calling 911. I downloaded everything, backed it up, emailed it to myself. Then I called my friend Lena, a detective I'd known since college. "This is arson," she said flatly after watching the footage. "You need to report this tonight." "I will," I replied, "but first I need to understand why." That night, I went back to Daniel's apartment and acted normal. He cooked dinner, talked about paint colors, Showed me a Pinterest board titled Our Future Home. I cleared out half my closet for you, he announced proudly. 3 weeks earlier, he'd penned an article, How to Convince Your Partner to Take the Next Step. I let him kiss me goodnight. I recorded everything. And when he whispered, I'm so glad you're not mad about the house. It was meant to be. I realized this wasn't an accident at all. This was a plan. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the gas can swinging at Daniel's side like it weighed nothing. I replayed the ring footage over and over, freezing frames, zooming in, watching the timestamp tick forward like a countdown to something I hadn't been ready to see. At 2:47 p.m., he walked in calm. At 3:11 p.m., smoke bloomed. That wasn't panic. That was patience. By morning, shock had hardened into something colder, clearer. I took screenshots of everything, saved the original files, uploaded them to 3 different cloud accounts. I'd learned the hard way in business that evidence only matters if it survives sabotage. Then I called Lena again. I want to do this right, I said. I don't want him slipping out on a technicality. Then don't confront him yet, she replied. Let him keep talking. That turned out to be easier than I expected. Daniel texted constantly. Did you eat? I made soup for when you're ready. We'll get through this together. Together. The word landed wrong every time. That afternoon, I met Lena at a diner off the highway. Neutral ground, public, safe. She watched the footage again, slower this time, her jaw tightening. He bought the gas somewhere else, she said. Cash purchase, I'd bet. People who plan these things think they're clever. I want motive on record, I replied. I want him explaining it himself. Lena studied me. You're sure you want to play this out? He burned down my grandmother's house to control me, I said quietly. I want him exposed. That night, I went back to Daniel's apartment. He opened the door with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, like he was checking my reaction before committing to his own. I was worried, he said, pulling me into a hug. I hate you being alone right now. I just need stability, I murmured into his shoulder. He stiffened, just slightly, then relaxed. That's why this makes sense, he said eagerly. Us, together. No more distance. No more old memories dragging you backward. Old memories. He cooked dinner like nothing had happened. Pasta, garlic bread, a bottle of wine he said he'd been saving for when things settled. He talked about logistics, practicalities, lease terms, closet space. I even made room in the office for your desk, he said. You can work from home sometimes. I nodded, smiled, let him think this was working. Later, while he showered, I picked up his phone. He left it unlocked on the nightstand. My hands didn't shake this time. I opened his messages. The thread with Marissa was right there. Marissa, did you actually do it? Daniel, had to. She was never going to leave that place. Marissa, that's insane. What if you get caught? Daniel, she's grieving. She won't think straight. Insurance will cover it. Win-win. Marissa, you're terrifying. Daniel, desperate times. I took screenshots. Every message, every timestamp. Then I checked his browser history. 2 days before the fire. How hot does fire need to be to destroy a house? How long before fire department responds? Rural areas. What do arson investigators look for? Do gas can purchases get traced? He'd even Googled how to remove sentimental attachments quickly. I felt something snap inside my chest. This wasn't about love. It was about ownership. I searched his email next, found a receipt from a gas station 30 miles away, paid in cash. Time-stamped an hour before he arrived at my grandmother's house. When he came out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, humming like he didn't have a felony sitting in his search history, I was already dressed. Where are you going? He asked casually. Insurance office, I said. Then the police station. He froze. The police? He asked, too quickly. Standard procedure, I replied calmly. Need the report for claims. Oh, right, of course. He forced a smile. Want me to come? No, I said. You've been through enough. Relief flooded his face. I drove straight to the station. Detective Riley took my statement personally once Lena looped him in. When he saw the footage, he didn't even pretend neutrality. "This is arson," he said. "Clean as it gets." They called Daniel while I sat behind the one-way glass. "Mr. Walker, we need you to come down for questioning." He called me immediately afterward, voice shaking. "They're treating me like a criminal," he said. "You believe me, right?" "I'll tell them exactly what I know," I replied. At the station, Daniel wore his most harmless outfit. Soft sweater, neutral colors, the version of himself designed to look trustworthy. They started gently. "Walk us through what happened." "I went to clean the house as a surprise," he said. "I lit a candle. It smelled musty. I knocked it over." "Which room?" "The living room." Riley slid photos across the table. "That's interesting, because the fire originated in the basement. Accelerant was used." Daniel blinked. Once. "I was bringing gas for the lawnmower," he said quickly. "Eleanor asked me to." Riley glanced at the mirror. I shook my head. "She didn't," Riley said. "She was at work." The panic flashed across Daniel's face before he masked it. Then he snapped. "You don't understand," he said, voice rising. "That house was ruining everything. She cared more about some dead woman's junk than our future." "So you burned it down," Riley said flatly. "I did it for her," Daniel insisted, "so she could move forward." I stepped into the room. "You didn't burn down a house," I said. "You erased my family." He looked at me like I'd betrayed him. "You said accidents happen." "This wasn't an accident," I replied. "This was control." They arrested him on the spot. As they cuffed him, he shouted, "I did this for us." I didn't answer, because for the first time, I wasn't confused. I was done. The arrest didn't end anything. It only gave Daniel a louder platform. Within hours, his mother Caroline started calling. Over and over. Missed calls stacking up like a threat I could mute but not ignore. I answered the fourth one. "How dare you," she said without preamble. "How dare you let them arrest my son?" "I didn't let anything happen," I replied. "He committed arson." "He made a mistake," she snapped. "He was trying to help you." "He burned down my grandmother's house," I said slowly, as if volume might substitute for reality in her world. "You're too attached to the past," Caroline shot back. "A real woman would understand that relationships matter more than buildings. A real adult wouldn't commit a felony to get their way." She hung up on me. By morning, the narrative had already shifted online. Marissa, who had handed over Daniel's phone the moment detectives knocked, suddenly found her courage on social media. "My best friend is in jail because his toxic ex couldn't let go of a moldy old house. He loved her too much. Free Daniel." The comments multiplied. "Insurance would have paid anyway. She entrapped him. Women like her punish men for caring." My favorite one came from a cousin I'd never met. "That house was probably worthless. She should be thanking him." I stopped reading after that. Daniel called from jail the next day. "Baby," he said softly, like nothing had changed. "I need you to bail me out." "No." There was a pause, like the word hadn't processed. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no," I said. "We're done." "You're just upset," he replied calmly. "Once I'm out, we'll do couples counseling. This whole thing just shows we have communication issues." I laughed. It surprised both of us. "You're facing serious charges," I said. "This isn't a misunderstanding." "First offense," he scoffed. "I'll get probation. Then we start fresh." "There is no fresh," I replied. "There's no us." "You don't mean that," he said. "You said accidents happen." "I said that before I knew you planned it." Silence. Then his voice hardened. "You're being ungrateful." "Ungrateful. I burned down a house for you," he continued. "Do you know what that cost me emotionally?" I hung up. 2 days later, his public defender called. "Mr. Walker wants to make a deal," she said. "He'll plead to a lesser charge if you speak on his behalf at sentencing." "No." "He's also requesting the return of his belongings." "What belongings?" "He claims he left clothes and electronics at your place." "My place burned down," I replied. "Anything he left there, he destroyed." "He says you have a ring." I almost smiled. "His grandmother is alive," I said. "She lives in Arizona, wearing all her rings." There was a pause. "Between you and me," the lawyer said quietly, "he genuinely doesn't understand why he's in trouble." 3 weeks later, Daniel made bail. Caroline put her house up as collateral. The first thing he did was violate the restraining order. I was standing at the remains of my grandmother's house with an insurance adjuster when his car pulled up. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, storming toward me. "This is my property," I replied. "You're violating the order. I came to get my things." "What things?" "I left a box in the basement," he said. "Jewelry, worth thousands." The adjuster frowned. "You mean the basement you filled with gasoline?" I asked. Daniel looked offended. "I didn't think it would burn everything," he said. "Just enough to make it unlivable." The adjuster's eyes widened. He discreetly pulled out his phone and hit record. "Daniel," I said quietly, "stop talking." "Not for my benefit," I added. "For the evidence." He froze. "I mean the candle," he corrected quickly. "It was the candle." "Sir," the adjuster said, "I'm required to report this conversation." Daniel swore and ran back to his car, peeling out of the driveway. They arrested him again that evening. From jail, he escalated. Caroline filed a civil suit on his behalf. Emotional distress, breach of promise, unjust enrichment. The claim was that I'd promised marriage, that Daniel had invested in our future, that I was profiting from his absence. My lawyer, Kurt, laughed so hard he cried when he read it. "This is the dumbest lawsuit I've seen in 20 years, he said. "They know there was no insurance, right?" He countersued. Wrongful destruction of property, intentional infliction of emotional distress, harassment, trespassing. $1.2 million. Caroline called me screaming. "You're suing us after everything you've done? Your son burned down my house on purpose. He was crying for help. He should have tried therapy before arson." The criminal trial was set for 2 months out. In the meantime, Daniel violated the restraining order 3 more times. Twice through friends delivering messages. Once through a fake social media account that sent me photos of my burned house with captions like, "You did this." Each violation added another charge. His lawyer begged him to stop. He didn't. The trial itself was almost anticlimactic. The evidence was overwhelming. Ring footage, text messages, search history, receipts, confessions, recorded admissions. Daniel insisted on testifying. "I just wanted us to start fresh," he told the jury. "Eleanor was stuck in the past, hoarding grief." The prosecutor didn't raise his voice. "You researched how to commit arson." "I was curious." "You bought gasoline 30 miles away with cash." "For privacy." "You texted that you had to burn the house." "It was a joke." "You stood and watched it burn for a full minute." "I was in shock from the accident you planned for 3 weeks." Daniel snapped. "She was going to choose a house over me," he shouted. "A house! I'm a person. I matter more." "So you destroyed it?" "Yes," he said. "And I'd do it again." The jury deliberated for 45 minutes. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, Caroline stood up. "My son is a good man who made one mistake." The judge didn't look impressed. "This was not a mistake," she said. "This was entitlement." Daniel got 7 years. He screamed when they led him away. "I did this for you," he shouted. "You'll never find anyone who loves you like I do." I didn't answer, because by then, I understood something he never would. That wasn't love. It was possession. Prison didn't quiet Daniel. It amplified him. The first letter arrived a week after sentencing, written in careful block letters, like he was submitting homework instead of rewriting reality. "Eleanor, I've had time to think. I forgive you for overreacting. When I get out, we should talk like adults. 7 years isn't that long with good behavior. We're meant to be together." There was a postscript. "You also owe me for my grandmother's ring that burned in the fire. $5,000 should cover it." I laughed out loud in my kitchen. Not a hysterical laugh, a tired one. I called his grandmother in Arizona. She answered on the second ring. "Honey," she said after I explained, "I'm wearing all my rings right now. Your ex and my daughter have been idiots their whole lives. I told Caroline not to bail him out. Boy needed consequences 50 tantrums ago." I thanked her and hung up. Caroline didn't take the civil loss well. After the judge dismissed their lawsuit and upheld Kurt's counterclaim, she showed up at my motel at 11 p.m., drunk and furious. "You ruined my son's life over nothing," she slurred. "Leave," I said. "I'll pay you," she insisted. How much was that old dump worth? 20? 30,000? It wasn't about money. Everything's about money, she snapped. Name your price. My grandmother raised me there, I replied. There isn't one. She screamed at me in the parking lot until the night manager threatened to call the police. When she finally left, she shouted, "You'll die alone." A week later, she tried to attack me outside the courthouse during a pretrial hearing. Lena had to physically restrain her. Caroline picked up an assault charge to go with the rest of the wreckage. The civil trial lasted less than a day. Caroline represented herself. She argued that I'd emotionally manipulated her son, that I'd entrapped him, that I'd benefited from his absence. The judge awarded me the full amount, $1.2 million. Caroline's house, the one she'd put up for Daniel's bail, had to be sold. They were both bankrupt within 6 months. People kept asking me if I felt vindicated. I didn't. Money doesn't rebuild photographs. It doesn't restore handwriting. It doesn't bring back the height marks etched into a kitchen doorway, or the last voicemail from my mother saved on an old answering machine I'd kept for 26 years. Daniel didn't just burn a structure. He erased evidence that my family existed. I started rebuilding anyway. Same lot, smaller house, simpler layout. The treehouse was still standing. Turns out my grandmother built it like she expected disaster. Sometimes I climbed up there in the evenings with a beer, watching the new foundation take shape, thinking about how permanence is mostly an illusion. That's where I met Mark. Grief counseling, Tuesday nights, folding chairs, bad coffee. He'd lost his father a year earlier. His ex-girlfriend had destroyed his father's restored car collection during their breakup because he wouldn't quit his job to stay home with her. People like that don't stop, he said one night. No, I agreed. They escalate. We didn't rush anything. We talked, sat quietly, let silence exist without demanding something from it. He asked once if I regretted not dropping the charges. What would he have done the next time I said no? I asked. Mark nodded. Exactly. Another letter came from Daniel a month later. This one was angrier. You owe me closure. You destroyed our future. I sacrificed everything for you. I didn't reply. The house finished construction the following spring. I installed the best security system money could buy. Cameras everywhere. Fireproof safe bolted into the foundation. Inside it, I placed the few photos I'd grabbed from my apartment before everything happened. The ones that survived because they hadn't been where Daniel could reach them. The contractor called one afternoon while I was at work. You won't believe this, he said. We found something. Buried in the rubble, under collapsed beams, my grandmother's cast iron skillet, blackened, warped, but intact. Family legends said it survived the Chicago fire. Apparently it survived Daniel too. I cooked dinner with it that night. Mark sat at the counter watching quietly. Feels symbolic, he said. It is, I replied. Sometimes I drive past Caroline's old house. A new family lives there now. Kids in the yard, toys on the lawn, normal people living normal lives without committing felonies over relationship issues. That's all I wanted. A normal life. Instead, I got a front row seat to the most expensive tantrum in history. But I'm grateful I saw it when I did. Before marriage, before children, before he found new ways to justify control. Daniel took my past. He didn't take my future. And every time I lock the door of my rebuilt home, cameras blinking softly in the dark, I remember something my grandmother used to say. Anything built on entitlement always burns itself down. The day I moved back onto the lot, it rained. Not dramatically, not cinematically. Just a steady, quiet rain that soaked into the new wood and darkened the gravel driveway like the place was being baptized into a second life. I stood in the doorway for a long time before stepping inside. The house was smaller than before. One floor, clean lines, no wasted space, no upstairs full of ghosts. But it faced the same direction, caught the same afternoon light my grandmother used to complain about when it faded her curtains. I didn't hang photos right away. I let the walls stay blank. There was something healing about not rushing to prove the past still existed. Daniel wrote again 2 months later. This one came through his lawyer. He wanted to reopen dialogue. He wanted closure. He wanted to understand where things went wrong. I told Kurt to respond with one sentence. There will be no further contact. Apparently, that infuriated him, because the next letter came handwritten, angrier, sloppier. You're pretending you're stronger than you are. You needed me. You'll realize it eventually. I burned it. Not ceremonially, not with tears, just tore it in half and dropped it into the fireplace like it was overdue junk mail. That was the moment I knew he no longer lived in my head. The civil judgment finalized shortly after. Caroline's assets were liquidated. What little remained went to restitution and legal fees. She tried to appeal. It went nowhere. She sent me one last message from a new number. I hope you're happy. I blocked it. Happiness had nothing to do with her anymore. Mark and I took things slowly. Pain has a way of teaching you patience if you let it. We cooked together, took long walks, sat in silence without trying to fill it. When something reminded me of the fire, or my grandmother, or the years that vanished in smoke, he didn't rush to fix it. He just stayed. One night, sitting on the back steps watching the treehouse sway gently in the wind, he asked me something that surprised me. Do you ever miss him? I thought about it honestly. No, I said. I miss who I thought he was. Mark nodded like he understood exactly what that meant. A year passed. Daniel's appeal was denied. With good behavior, he'd be eligible for parole in a little over 5 years. According to his letters, he believed that meant we'd reconnect. I changed my phone number, installed one more camera. Lena joked that my house was more secure than the police station. Maybe. But peace is worth protecting. Sometimes when I'm up in the treehouse at dusk, I think about how close I came to giving him what he wanted. If the fire hadn't happened, I might have moved in. If I'd transferred the insurance sooner, he might have gotten away with it. If I'd been a little lonelier, a little weaker, a little more afraid of being alone. He didn't just miscalculate the law, he misjudged me. The skillet hangs in my kitchen now, mounted on the wall like a relic. Every time I use it, I think about survival. Not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind, the kind that rebuilds without applause, the kind that doesn't chase revenge, but refuses to accept control disguised as love. Daniel thought destroying my past would trap me in his future. What he didn't understand is that love doesn't survive entitlement. It suffocates under it. The house stands solid now. The foundation is stronger. The walls are fire-rated, and the door only opens for people who knock. Some nights, Mark and I cook together and eat at the counter, rain tapping softly against the windows, and I realized something simple and profound. I didn't lose everything in that fire. I lost the lie, and that's the one thing I never want back.